over the past summer. Some of you I may have visited some of you if you didn't fill out your census form. But it gave me the opportunity to visit almost 500 homes in the town of Foster, Gloucester, a little bit of Scituate, and a little bit of Johnston. And I had the opportunity, first of all, to drive on every road that exists in this town, some of which I didn't know existed until I got that job this summer, but talk to a lot of people as well. And many people in town are concerned about maintaining the rural character of the town. Many folks are concerned about many different issues, and I got to hear what they had to say. And I'll speak to some of those, because many of those have shown up in the particular questions. So I thought, as a retired individual, I might be able to bring some skills that I've had to the town. So I am glad to be here, and I'm interested to hear what everybody else has to say.
Next candidate to speak, Ms. Rogers.
Hi, I'm Heidi Rogers. Thank you all for coming tonight. I have been a resident of Foster for 21 years. My husband and I have 4 children and 6 grandchildren. All of our kids went to Pontegansett High School. I'm a graduate of Pontegansett, as well as my husband. I've been a volunteer firefighter and EMT for the past 15 years, serving as deputy commander, so I've been leadership experiences. I was a paralegal for 24 years and retired 2 years ago. I also served as council president from 2004 to 2006. So I understand how town government works. I also attend all council meetings and film them for the public. I put them on public access TV as well as on YouTube and the Facebook page. So I understand the issues that are facing Foster right now. I understand how the government operations are with the town hall. And I just felt that with that knowledge and that experience at this time, which I believe is going to be very challenging financially for Foster, that that experience would help to serve on the council.
Mr. Stone.
Hi, I'm Christy Stone, the current vice chair of the current council. Been married to my wife Beth for 44 years. We've raised 4 sons. We have 10 grandchildren. We've lived in town for 37 years and was involved in the Lions Club, Scituate Soccer League, Scituate Blue League, over the years. Thank you.
Mr. Nadiger.
Hi, my name is Marvin Nadiger. Most people call me Joe or Hemi Joe. I moved here a little over 7 years ago from Scituate with my 3 children. We raised livestock for over 15 years and decided that the rural characteristics is what we needed for the interest that we enjoyed. I most recently retired from the towing and auto body business, which I owned for 33 years. I believe that my business experience and compassion to help others would benefit the town of Foster. After my family's way of living was disrupted by the gravel bank on 9 Mount Hygeia and the total disrespect for the abutters and the people of Foster that showed concerns by the present council, I decided to run for town council. If elected, I will make everybody's concerns my own. A town can only be a town with the people that live in it. You will always matter to me, and I will always put you first. Let's unite Foster once again. Thank you.
Mr. Carey.
Hi, I'm Joe Carey. I'm 58 years old. I've been living in Foster since 1986 with my wife Audrey. I live in my grandparents' house. They've been here since the mid-60s, so I spent a lot of time as a child in Foster, so I know how the town has been for many years. I've been involved in the town government for the past 20 years, and I'm ready to move into an authority position. I've been on the planning board since 2013, and I'm currently the chairman for the past 4 years. I was on the Charter Review Commission in 2012, and also I've been involved in the budget process and understand how the town's budget is structured. With this knowledge, I will work to move projects forward that have been in the works that need to be completed, so the town can move on to new projects to help our taxpayers. I look to ask you for your vote in November, and I think that I would be an asset to the town, and I would, work with the people and listen to their concerns. I think that's very important, that you listen to what people have to say. So with that in mind, I thank you.
Ms. Johnston.
Hello, thanks for coming. My name is Lisa Butler Johnston, and I'm running for town council. I'm from Greene and have lived in Foster since 1999. I have two great kids who went through this school and graduated from Connegansett. I was a Situate youth soccer coach for several years. My kids grew up playing ball at Woody Loudon and riding horses with Cornerstone. I currently have a booth at the town's awesome antique shop of Lee's Buzz, and for nearly 20 years I've been a part of this community. Foster has seen me through good and bad times. At a time when I struggled with a tax payment, I was never looked down upon by anyone at Town Hall. The greatest treasures of our small town are the caring people who live and work here. I know from my own experience that just one tax increase can put you over your budget or even out of your home. Affordability is a driving force behind why I stepped up to run for council and help keep the spending under control. That, along with the acknowledgement by many on the town council and in the Republican town committee for my conservative views. I've spent half of my career as a realtor and the latter half as an x-ray tech. My experience with people, attention to detail, and the love for Foster is why your vote for me won't be lost. Thank you very much.
Big one. There you go. Go ahead.
This is the next question.
New round.
All right.
You all can hear still?
So we're on question one. What new initiatives, ideas, short and long-term plans do you have to maintain or reduce the current property taxes in order for regular town folks to afford to live here? Please be specific. Mr. Nottingham, you are up first.
I'm interested in a lot of the vehicles, leasing some equipment to help keep some money in the budget. I'm open to some creative solutions. USDA grant money we're looking into right now. That's pretty much it.
Ms. Rogers.
I think we need to rezone Route 6, or look into the zoning, the rezoning that was done 10 years ago, and the council has requested the planning board already to do that, but I think that's really important for business. I don't know how much people know about Route 6, and everybody thinks it's just this nice big business corridor, but much of both sides of Route 6 is swamp. So I think we need to look at rezoning to allow businesses to expand or to attract some new businesses. I think also regionalizing the schools would be a financial benefit, and the council did just recently vote to go into talks for full regionalization. But the answer for reducing taxes or maintaining them is, I'm not gonna lie, I think it's an impossibility to reduce taxes. I think it's a stretch to maintain them without something major happening, which businesses, if we can get them, would help. But I think mostly the rezoning and the regionalization of the schools is what I'd be looking for.
If at any time anybody wants the question reread, just raise your hand, holler out. Ms. Johnston.
I think as far as the affordability of Foster, if we want to keep it from becoming totally unaffordable, we need to seriously consider any lots that are business to be rezoned to accommodate different types of businesses, light industrial and so forth, to help generate income into the town. And like Patty was saying, the regionalization of the school, I think, is really going to be a big step forward in alleviating some of the stress from the residential taxpayers and stop us from spending beyond our means, because everybody knows you can't spend what you don't have.
Mr. Carey?
Well, this is a difficult question. It is virtually impossible to reduce taxes. We can strive to keep increases in line with inflation and hopefully slow the increases. We need to get back to getting grant funding to offset the need for tax increases. The planning board is looking at possible zoning changes to allow different business opportunities on Route 6. While this could help, it in itself will not alleviate tax increases. We need to work with our schools and other town departments and find ways to consolidate some of our services. And I think, I think Heidi hit on some of it, and, the zoning on Route 6 is important. I mean, we have GBM, which went in 10 years ago, which was a very good plan, and it allows the use of the entire property. At this point, the planning board is looking at it, and we need to get better ideas of the size of the lots and the amount of wetlands on them, and see how much usable land there actually is on these lots. There's been discussion of allowing other portions of Route 6 to possibly go over to a commercial zone of some sort. We haven't really decided which way to go about it, but I think the GBM is important, and set areas that are GBM should remain that way, because it does protect the commercial zones. There was some talk about a AR commercial option, which in itself isn't a bad idea, but I think for the GBM, if you change that to that type of thing, some of that can revert back to residential, and you would lose some of your commercial properties to residential uses. So I think the GBM does protect our commercial zones. Thank you.
Ms. Lawson?
There's clearly no quick fix to the financial challenges that this town faces. Foster is the third smallest town in the state. 70% of our housing is single-family housing, and as a result, it's going to be very difficult to address the fiscal issues associated with the town now faces. It's important to understand that the town budget is $13.5 million. That sounds like an enormous amount of money, and you would seem to think there would be ways to save money. Keep in mind that approximately $7.6 million is the cost of running the school district. And there's not a lot we can do about the regional school district budget. And to some extent, the Payne school budget is also driven by personnel costs, which are contracted costs that there is not a lot of wiggle room in. The police budget is about $1.5 million. And when I talk to people in town, they were not happy about the possible thought of either regionalizing the police or giving up the police and letting the state police take care of it. The police are a very, very much appreciated group of individuals in this town, so there really isn't a lot of place to save money there as well. One of our claims to fame in this town is that we have trash pickup, and Situate does not. The cost of trash pickup is approximately $300,000 a year, and I'm not sure any of us want to give up trash pickup. Public Works, again, an essential service for the safety of our town in terms of plowing, salting, maintaining the condition of our roads and bridges, that's another $900,000. So it's critically important to understand the numbers and what the numbers mean. We have about $3 million of somewhat discretionary funding, the money that funds the people that run our town hall, etc. To make anything work, we're going to have to look to an aggressive, assertive granting program.
Ms. Hawes, I'd like to, before you start, you were late coming in, you have the option of either answering the first question on the question list or giving a 2-minute opening statement. Your pick.
I think most people, first let me apologize, things happen, I get out of your control, and I do apologize. I think most people know who I am. They probably know why I ran. I ran to fill my father's vacated seat because he loved the town and I love it just as much as he did. And I ran again and I'm running again. Number one, is it?
Number one is what we're on, yes.
So you could do your introduction if you wanted to, answer whatever you want to do at the time.
Well, my introduction is pretty much, you know, that I've been on the council for 3 years. I think that my experience there will help me go moving forward. It's a learning experience every single day. Every single time we sit, I learn something new. I think that my background as president of a local for many years, sitting on many boards and working for NEA Rhode Island, has led me to be in a leadership position many times. And I think that I can safely say that I'm not intimidated easily. I stand for what I believe in. I say what I mean. I really don't mince words. And that's just who I am. I love this town. I'm probably going to die in this town. At least I hope I am. And I want it to succeed, and I want it to move forward with the times, but yet retain the ruralness that I grew up with, that I love. And I want people to be happy and comfortable here, and to have choices and options, which means new businesses, and how that happens, things have to be worked out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Franco?
I won't stand this time. There are many concerns about our taxes, and I agree. To lower the taxes is an impossibility. We're here. To maintain them is what I would like to see. I can't do this alone. I don't have all the answers, and neither does one individual. I think we need to work together to achieve the answers, our goals. I feel that the biggest hindrance is the lack of civility. We need to put our differences aside, listen to suggestions, evaluate them as a team. As a member of this council, we have brought forward various motions to help maintain taxes. We have regionalized with the Situate Animal Control once our animal control officer retired. We have asked, as was mentioned, the planning board to review the current zoning on Route 6 and to speak to the business people and the residents on Route 6 to see what they think would work. We have also written a letter to the Gloucester Town Council asking them to meet to discuss the regionalization at the elementary level. I know there are strong feelings on both sides of this, but this is more of a fact finding to see where we are, what our concerns are, and how we can address them. Thank you.
Mr. Stone?
I believe that we can only maintain taxes, we're not going to reduce them. And the way we need to do that is we need to bring more income into the town. For business, we need any type of business to come to Gloucester, any type. And I'm on the current council, and we have asked the planning to revisit zoning to encourage business.
Did everyone respond to that question? That's everybody?
Okay, question 2. The roads, bridges, and other infrastructure within the town require ongoing maintenance in order to keep them safe and secure. What is your plan for funding town-wide infrastructure projects and maintaining town roads, bridges, and infrastructure? How much do you feel the town should budget each year for town-wide infrastructure? Ms. Johnston?
Currently, there is a 5-year plan for the roads, which is listed by priority, and the town really needs to adhere to that plan. We need a charter amendment to increase the amount that goes into capital from 2% to 4% each year to help solve these issues.
Mr. Natiger?
I believe that we should investigate some of the state municipal road and bridge capital funds with the lowered interest rates to help the town. Once again, the 5-year plan that was put in council prior, and continue putting in the percentage that we do now at the present time.
Ms. DeFranco?
The last charter review recommended that the capital budget be increased from 2% to 4%. The town people voted that down. In the past, as a council member for 3 terms, we have put 4% into the capital when applicable, or the availability is there. As people have mentioned, we do have a 5-year road plan. We've also applied and should continue to apply for grants. And we should rely on our DPW director as far as what the amount of money should be put aside.
Ms. Lawson?
I agree with everyone who's spoken relative to the importance of the 5-year road plan. The issue, however, from my perspective, is that road plan needs to be revisited on an annual basis. Things change during bad weather. A bridge may fail that we thought would be perfectly fine at some particular point in time. So it is critical that that DPW director, on an annual basis, review the plan, update the plan to make sure it's current based upon the needs that the town has. The roads are critical to the safety of all of us who drive, of our children on their school buses, etc. It's a critical thing that needs to do. Relative to grants, the state of Rhode Island, not unlike many states, but not all states, has a municipal road and bridge revolving fund. And that revolving fund can be used to fund capital improvements. And it provides to cities and towns who apply for those funds a much reduced interest rate for the money necessary for a capital type improvement. So if on an annual basis we're reviewing and revising that plan to identify capital needs, we would be able to go after and pursue the state to assist in that. We're never going to reduce taxes. We need to try to maintain our tax levels, and we need to identify every possible source of grant dollar, reduced cost money, in order to keep that tax level low.
Ms. Halls?
So far, everybody said exactly what I would have said. A little differently, but they've hit every point. We need to review our 5-year plan, and we haven't really been following that, I don't think, as well as we could have. I think we need to review it, revisit it. As Ms. Lawson said, things change, as the other two have stated. I think we need to work with our planner more. There are grants out there that we can obtain, but we have to give her more time in order to be able to do that. And it is a priority. It's our safety. It's the safety of the people in this town that all our bridges are operating and our roads are maintained at all times.
Ms. Rogers?
It's tough being 7 out of 9 people, because everything that I was going to talk about has been talked about, except I'd like to address the capital improvement fund a little more, since everybody's already covered everything else. That was probably the most important question when the charter committee met. We've been putting 2% into the capital fund for so many years, and at one time it was enough to sustain our new fire trucks, our rescues, our roads, equipment for the town hall, the police cars. And in all of these years, 30 years, fire trucks are now almost $400,000. Rescues, $200,000. Putting that same 2% in makes no sense. When I was on the council in 2004, I believe we had $2.5 million in our capital fund. Now, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but it's well below that, under $1 million. It's not sustainable at 2%. So I think when people saw that we were looking to put 4% into this fund, I talked to a lot of people who thought it was just some kind of a slush fund and didn't understand the importance of that fund and what it was for. So I would like to see it come up again when we have another charter review commission, and make people understand what that fund was really for and why we need 4% to support all of these projects.
Mr. Stone?
I pretty much had the same thing written. We need to increase to 4%. That would raise the capital monies that we put in approximately $300,000, and we could really use it. This was on the ballot in 2016 and failed. And I think right now, we haven't followed the road plan, and I think it's basically because of finances. Thank you.
Mr. Carey?
Thank you. The road and bridge plan needs to be adhered to, as everybody knows. It is required to annually review this plan by the DPW's director and the planning board. The problem, as has been brought up by everybody, is that there's a lack of funding. So even though there's a plan there, if we want to pave a mile of road and we only have enough to pave 1 mile, we need 3 miles paved, the money's not there. So the plan can't be fulfilled without funding. So we need to increase the capital. The previous charter review commission actually voted against the 4%. Planning board decided to write a letter to the council to recommend that they add that question, and the council voted to agree with the planning board that the 4% was necessary. But the charter review commission didn't think it was. So anyway, that's how it came to be, and I think there was a lot of misunderstanding about what the money was and the cost of taxpayers. As far as the plan, the funds for pavement and bridges need to be allocated annually through the capital budget. Some roads, such as gravel roads, are funded through DPW's operating budget. We need to allocate a minimum of $200,000 per year just to get caught up on our paving projects. We need to look into repair and rebuilding our bridges in-house, saving thousands of dollars, and apply for infrastructure grants to receive state and federal funds to offset the cost. Thank you.
Okay, we're going on to question 3. The police station building has been declared unsafe by the state fire marshal. If you are elected to the town council, what would your plan be to address this issue? What is your vision for the police department? Mr. Nottingham.
I'd like to keep the police station right where it is. I'd like to put an addition on it. It belongs in the center of Foster. I believe that we can put an addition on and then renovate the existing. There are plenty of grants out there that we've been looking into that would help with it, but I'd actually like to act on it right away.
Mr. Carey.
We need to get a final report from the building committee. The police station building committee was formed about 3.5 years ago, and it seems that the present council was unwilling to make a decision on this. We need to look at all options, but we have spent almost $40,000 on the current plans and need to make a decision. Possible upgrades and an addition to the current station may be possible and more cost-effective. I am a supporter of our police department, and I feel that it is an important part of our community. And, you know, this police station thing's been going around a long time, and I think the issues with the safety there, we might end up like Situate with our police department in a trailer somewhere at a firehouse or something, because they can come in any day now and just close that place down. I mean, if you've ever been there, the police department is open to tours. I know the previous chief always let people go in, and I took a tour with my wife, and it's pretty bad. I mean, you can't even walk up the stairs without ducking, or you're going to hit your head. If somebody tall comes down, they can get hurt if they're in an emergency and running down the stairs. There's one little holding cell, I think the one in Mayberry is bigger than our jail. And, you know, if you get a couple prisoners in there, it's dangerous, especially with these domestics, when you have to separate people. So there's a lot of issues there, so it does have to be taken care of one way or another. We have to do something. We can't just keep waiting until, you know, we don't have any options and we're in trailers. Thank you.
Mr. Franco?
Currently, there is a time frame or a timeline to rectify the state fire marshal's concerns. Some of them have been completed, some of them in the process of being completed. My vision for the police department is dependent on what the police station building committee recommends, which will ultimately have to go to the people during a financial town meeting. Although I do want to mention that I have brought forward the possibility of purchasing property at the corner of Route 6 and 94. I thought it was a good location, right near the school, on a busy highway. People agreed with me, but it was not cost effective, so that was not brought forward. The building committee was meeting on Thursday night, the 18th, and now they are now meeting on the 25th, which prolongs. There is a site survey that's been completed, and it keeps being prolonged. I don't think it's this council that is holding up the decision on the police department. I think that it's a process that's taking longer than we expected. Thank you.
Ms. Halls?
As a citizen and a current member of the council, I'm appalled and I am ashamed that we allow our police department and our dispatchers to work in that building. It's unhealthy and it's unsafe, as everybody has stated. It is my desire to meet with the building committee and see if we can help this process along and bring it to the people for a vote and do what is right for this town and for the people that we employ. They deserve to work in a healthy environment, and we need to take responsibility of that. The police are an integral part of this town. They do much more than just policing. They're in the schools, they're at the elderly complex. They are everywhere in town, and we need to treat them with the respect and give them the respect they need by housing them in a building where they can do the job that they were hired to do, the dispatchers as well. So my hope is that we can push this along a little faster. It has been a slow process. I understand that, but we need to move. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
Everything has pretty much been said. Unfortunately, we're in the position now where we have to wait for the building committee to bring something forward. Whether it's a new building, fixing the building they're in, moving to one side of the town hall, which I thought was another good idea. It's going to ultimately be up to the voters, the taxpayers. And if the plans come forward for a new building and the taxpayers, the majority of the taxpayers, vote for that, then that's what we'll get. But there's really not much that we can do until there's a plan in place that's either voted up or voted down.
Mr. Stone?
The current council has spent already approximately $10,000 on the current police station to make the conditions better. We wait for the building committee to make their recommendation. That recommendation will not be able to be voted on until 2020 budget. So this committee was appointed by the previous council and has really, in my opinion, dragged their feet.
Ms. Lawson?
The issue of the police station is certainly an interesting one and one that's critical at this particular point in time. In preparation for this meeting, I spent a fair amount of time reviewing town council meeting minutes as well as taking a look at the budgets. In 2017, there was a $30,000 line item for police department planning. which I have to assume had to have something to do with the building. When I looked for a report of all that planning money that was spent, I could find nothing, which is kind of interesting. People have said we need to do something about it. What we need to do is figure out how to pay for it. And I spent some time doing some research on that particular topic, and the United States Department of Agriculture has a community facility and direct loan and grant program for rural communities. Rural communities are defined as anything under 12,000 people. Our population is around 4,000. Priority for those grant funds are given to rural communities that have populations under 5,500. We would go to the top of a priority list if we simply tried to apply for, if we had a plan in place for the building and then applied for that particular money. So again, in terms of what we need to do, we need to be assertive and creative in looking for alternative sources of revenue. I've heard no one talk about how we're going to pay for a new police building. I've heard no one talk about, can we look for grants for that? My background, which was, I spent many, many years developing and writing grants, competitive grants, not the flow-through money, but competitive grants, is critical to get this particular thing done, because this police station, whether we renovate, build an addition, or build a new building, is going to be expensive.
You do realize you have 15 seconds after I tap the gavel.
Oh, I just thought you were tapping the gavel because you wanted me to be quiet.
No. That's the reason, it's the warning, to give you time to finish.
If I'm not careful, my husband's going to get that gavel to shut me up at home.
I won't let him touch it.
Oh.
Ms. Johnston.
Pretty much the same thing. We're currently working with the state fire marshal to continue to correct the issues and maintain a safe work environment at the current police station. And regarding a new station, the committee, a site survey has been completed and is scheduled to be discussed at the next meeting. And without the input after that, we can take into consideration what their ideas are.
Question 4. The town planner position in Foster is currently a part-time job. What do you feel are the responsibilities of the town planner? Do you think the town of Foster should keep the town planner position part-time or increase this to a full-time position? Mr. Stone?
Now, I think it would be nice to have a full-time planner with all our current issues. The problem is the finances. To have a full-time planner would increase her salary, with her salary and benefits, retirement, would increase it $45,000. This would make it an $85,000 job. I think at the present time, unless we can find some income, it wouldn't be feasible. And the town planner should consult with the council and zoning for the purpose of setting short-term and long-term goals. Thank you.
Mr. Franco?
The town planner's responsibilities are set forth by the town charter. It states that the primary responsibility is for maintenance of the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, and the 5-year highway plan. Long-range and short-range planning, and such other duties as may be prescribed by Rhode Island law, the town ordinances, or the town council or planning board. Our town planner is very efficient. She has a lot of creative new ideas. I'm hoping that she will be able to bring forth things that will help our town and bring in further income. As far as making a full-time planner, I think thought should be given to other monies via grants that would warrant the position to be full-time. If we get grants, there is an administrative cost that would help pay for the planner. Thank you.
Mr. Carey?
The town planner works with the planning board and is responsible for updating the comprehensive plan, the land and subdivision regulations, and the zoning ordinances. I would support a full-time planner as it would allow the ability to seek out grants to decrease our dependency on property taxes to fund projects, such as roads and bridge improvements, public safety vehicles, and equipment for public works. Also funded for renovations to town buildings could be paid for through grants that she would have time to do. It would also allow time to reach out to businesses, to try to attract them to operate in Foster. I am confident that the benefits of a full-time planner outweigh the cost. It is estimated to be an additional $18,182 per year, about 0.04% of the town's annual operating budget. I do understand that we would have to work this into the budget, and funds may not be available. I think that the grant writing is of major importance. I mean, there's so many things that we could accomplish if we had money from other sources. And people are, obviously, I'm a homeowner and I go to work every day and live, on a normal income, and, I know I don't like my taxes going up any more than anybody else. I realize it's a reality these days because, things are getting more expensive. But we had times, years back, when we had a full-time planner, and there was a lot of money coming in grants. And I think if she can go out and get grants, and she has a lot of past experience with economic development in other towns, and I think we can attract businesses. Thank you.
Ms. Johnston?
The town planner should be proactive in maintaining harmony within the town, regenerating and revitalizing the existing businesses and attracting new businesses should be a goal of the planner. It's currently a part-time position, but if warranted by additional business income or funds from grants written, it may be advantageous to add additional hours to this position.
Ms. Hawes?
I don't have to tell you what a full-time planner would do, what a planner does, because it's been stated. But I believe that it has been proven over the last few years that we need a full-time planner. I think a full-time planner will more than pay for her or himself in the work that they will be able to accomplish, which the part-time planner right now can't possibly accomplish all that's on her desk or on her plate, or that she's responsible for. We need someone that is good at writing grants, researching them, getting them, obtaining them, and as everybody stated, working with businesses and helping the town to move forward. Thank you.
Ms. Lawson?
I think relative to the position of town planner, it's critically important that we talk about vision. What I've heard people talk about, she maintains a comprehensive plan. To some extent, well, I don't want to denigrate the value of the comprehensive plan. That's a document that has a 20-year time horizon. It won't be due again, I think, until 2023, if my arithmetic is correct. From my perspective, the town council must communicate to that town planner a vision for what that position is supposed to do for this town. From my perspective, that means she needs or he needs to help the town flourish economically, socially, and environmentally. And what does that mean when it comes down to the detail? She needs to work cooperatively with every department head, the police chief, the DPW, etc., in order to make sure she understands what they need in order to make this town a great place to live, or a better place to live than it is now. Although it's a pretty good place to live, I must admit. She needs to be an assertive and aggressive seeker of grants for this particular town. That is, in my opinion, needs to be job one, given the financial status that the town has. We need more revenue, we need things for our roads, we need things for our bridges, we need things for our police department. That's got to come from grants, because otherwise the cost, the impact on the tax rate would be incredible. We need her to be a leader in the town. And I don't support adding a town administrator, because this is a small town. I think with the right person in that position, as a full-time position, he or she could get that job done to help this town grow financially, help this town grow economically, help this town grow socially, and hopefully maintain our tax rate.
Ms. Rogers?
Well, again, everything has pretty much been said, and I don't disagree with anybody. I think it comes down to, you know, where is the money gonna come from? Last year, we had to cut a police officer. That's our public safety. I would rather have our police officer than a planner, I'm sorry, but that's where I stand on that. And ultimately, this question goes to the financial town meeting. It's been added before and presented at a financial town meeting, and it's been rejected. The townspeople have not voted for a full-time planner. I see the benefits. I think obtaining grants is wonderful. My problem with it is just where else are we going to cut, and how are we going to pay for it?
Mr. Knottinger?
I'm for a full-time planner. I agree with Ms. Lawson. Not much more I can say. I think the benefits from the grants and whatnot outweigh what it's going to cost for her salary. I am for it.
We are on to question 5. What will you do to improve the level of civility in town politics so that people will be comfortable being engaged in civic life? What will you do to bring together longtime town residents and new arrivals? Mr. Stone?
Great. I believe I'm already leading by example. I respect everyone's opinion, try to remove my personal feelings from the discussion, and agree to disagree. I think the rec department does a great job bringing people together with their events. Our town clerk, Sue Dillon, is hand-delivering welcome packets along with gifts to the new residents. And of course, Old Home Days is a great venue for the new people in town to meet all the residents. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
I think that the town is a lot more civil than it used to be. Chris mentioned a lot of things that I was going to mention. For example, Sue Dillon, the town clerk, acting as our own personal welcome wagon, and when people move in, going to their homes, welcoming them to town. I think that it's a really good community feel to people when she shows up at their door. Recreation has come a long way with the Bright Night. It's amazing how many people show up at that Bright Night. So that's a big community event. They do the trunk or treat now for the kids at the fairgrounds, and they did it the first year, it was last year, and it was amazing to see so many people. So I think recreation has a lot to do with that, with the community. And as far as civility at meetings, I think it's been pretty good. I haven't seen a lot of issues, but just being respectful to people and agreeing to disagree, I think has a lot to do with it. We're all adults.
Mr. Franco?
I must say, I was pleased to see this question because I have not been involved with politics long, but I feel that the level of civility in this town has taken a nosedive. I try to improve that level of civility in town politics. As town council president, I am polite and courteous to all that either attend or call me or email me. Most of all, I think our biggest complaint is, and I'm not citing anybody, is that Facebook. People are more willing to make comments on Facebook than they are to make comments face-to-face. I would appreciate hearing from people, having them call me, stop by my house, stop me at the grocery store. Tell me what you're thinking, rather than putting things out on Facebook. Thank you.
Mrs. Knottinger?
Pretty much the same. We need to stop the bullying at these meetings, stop gossiping on this Foster Town news, put the public first again, so that everybody feels comfortable coming to these meetings.
Ms. Johnston?
Civility in town is a mirror image of our civility within our town politics. I don't condone having partisan politics splitting up our community. Currently, our town hall is a welcoming program for new residents that I think should continue. It's a great program, and Sue puts a lot of effort into it. And I know everybody said when they introduced themselves how long they lived here and yada, 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 but it shouldn't be how long you have lived here, it should be how well have you lived here.
Ms. Hawes?
Well, I will continue to do what I have done. I will treat everyone with respect and hope to be treated with respect as well. I believe when you're elected to an office, especially the council, when you sit down on the other side of that table, you cease to be a Democrat or a Republican. You are a representative for the town, and you are to act on the town's behalf and take into consideration what is being said before you and to you. And speaking for me, I try very hard to do that. I'm not saying the others don't. I believe they do. I agree with Mrs. Dillon, Sue Dillon. I think she's a gem, and I think she's one to be treasured. She has done so much over in that town hall and for the new people and the people that are here in this town, and she's to be commended. I agree with Mrs. DeFranco. I read the Facebook posts, both sides. I hate them. I despise them. They're despicable. They cause problems. I do not respond to any one of them. But I read it to see what people are thinking. And it makes me sad, makes me angry. The half facts are out there or put out there, or that they're biased. Come to the meetings, find out what's going on, call us, stop by. I don't mind either. Stop me wherever you see me, ask me a question. I am more than willing to speak to anybody that approaches me or wants to call me. I return calls. We're a small town, and I grew up in this town, and I want to be proud of it always, and I want everybody to feel the same way and to like your neighbor.
Ms. Lawson?
I agree with just about everything everyone said, but I would take one very proactive action at the beginning, perhaps of maybe every town council meeting, but certainly at the very beginning that the council sits for the first time after an election. And that action would be to pass a motion that affirms that civil discourse is a shared value of everyone in this town. As I said, I visited 500 plus or so households in this area. You know, as a federal government employee, asking to collect information. And a lot of people were not necessarily happy about that. But of that 500 plus or so people, I can honestly say I encountered less than 10 people who were rude, difficult, or impossible to deal with. We are better than what's been on Facebook. We are a better community, we are better people. Can we please not affirm that on an annual basis? I don't have a Facebook account. I will not have a Facebook account because people will indeed say things on social media that they would never say to your face. And that somehow we need to fix that. And one of the things would be to, I will pay no attention to it because people can say whatever they want about me anytime they want. I will continue to act in a way that is civil to everyone. I'll be civil to you even if you're not civil to me. And I think that that statement of shared value of civility is critical at this particular point in time in this town because lots and lots of people feel that civility has indeed taken a nosedive.
Mr. Carey?
All right. So basically, you gotta treat everyone with respect that they deserve, and always remember that everyone's opinions do matter. A good discussion is always a good milestone. I mean, you go into, I've been involved with the planning board for many years. We have different projects and things and ordinances that we're working on. And I go into a meeting with, like, when I come to my conclusion, discussion, sometimes, some people bring up points and things that you didn't agree with, they can convince you, you know, by having an open discussion, and I think that's very important. I don't think, you know, that decisions should be made quickly, and we definitely need to discuss things thoroughly, and if we need more information, we need to get it before we make a decision. And, you know, everybody has an opinion, and I think they're all important. But I would suggest to the new arrivals that they get involved with our volunteer organizations and the town boards and commissions and to participate in community events. I think it's a great way to meet and get acquainted with the longtime residents. I mean, there's so many things going on in town, and you just go in and people are always happy to meet new people. And you get to meet people, you know, and there's a lot of people that have a lot of stories to tell, and they're very interesting. People have been here a long time, and you can sit there for hours and talk to them. But I think there's a lot of great people in this town, it's a great place to live, and I think the new people would enjoy getting to know some of the history. Thank you.
Question.
Question number 6. The town of Foster is run primarily by volunteers that serve on or in various departments, boards and commissions. If elected to the town council, what would you do to support those volunteer departments, boards, and commissions? What would you look for in new members to appoint to these boards and commissions? Ms. Lawson.
Some of the more interesting people that I've talked with as part of running for town council have been the volunteer fire and ambulance folks. And what I've understood them to say, and I certainly don't want to speak for them, is they want their work to be respected and valued by the town. I think it's critical that in some manner, shape, or form, on an annual basis, that a letter be sent from the town council to anyone who volunteers to show appreciation. Again, I think vision is important here. Volunteers are critical to this town. The town council needs to recognize that, and they need to talk about it and say it, and they need to talk about it and say it in a way that's as concrete as possible. I don't know about you, anytime I volunteered for something, if I got a letter, I went, oh, that's nice. I'm glad someone recognized what I did. And I'm not quite sure, based upon what I've heard from people in this town, that that's been happening on a regular enough basis. So if I were to be elected to the town council, I would make sure that we did things to show our appreciation to all of those people who volunteer. In terms of what to look for in new members to appoint to these boards, I think anybody who shows an interest should be encouraged to participate in some manner, shape, or form. We all have different gifts, we all have different interests. Let's try to build on all of the really interesting and wonderful people there are in this town. We're a great town, we have great people. Let's use them as much as we can, and let's show them how much we appreciate them in whatever ways we can do that. I think an annual Volunteer Appreciation Day, perhaps recognized at the Foster Old Home Days, would be a great thing to do to, again, show people how we appreciate them.
Mr. Franco.
I feel I already support the departments, boards, commissions by attending their meetings whenever possible. I must say that I see many fellow council members at these meetings. Although I'm not allowed, or we're not allowed to speak or give an opinion, I hope that our presence, or my presence, shows our support. When someone does submit a request to be appointed to the to a board or a committee, I try to call them and speak to them and see why they want to be on the board. I'm looking for a true commitment, not that they just want to be appointed and then never attend a meeting, or that they have a hidden agenda. I also like to get in touch with the chair of that committee to see what their thoughts are on a particular person, or see what, if they have any thoughts of any members that they would like to replace. I would also like to add that the council is also all volunteers. There is no stipend to be a council member. I do like the letter of appreciation, Mrs. Lawson. I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
I've been a volunteer firefighter in EMT for the town of Gloucester for over 15 years. When I first joined, there were so many people, especially in the ambulance corps, that we would go on calls and we would have so many people, we would literally have to throw people off our rescues. We couldn't take everybody. Now it's rare that we can get a full crew for the second rescue out. So the volunteers are dwindling. Even though they have a paid full-time person during the day, you need a volunteer. You need at least a driver, another EMT. So it's difficult to get volunteers now in the fire departments and the rescue. People are busy, people have kids. Myself now, I watch my grandkids, so I can't go on as many calls as I'd like to. I say to support the volunteers, become one if you can, if you have time. If you can join the fire department, everybody on the fire department is not running into a building and fighting fires. Everyone in the ambulance corps isn't going on runs and is not a medical person, but an auxiliary person. As far as boards and commissions, I agree with what Denise said, that you need to speak to people when they're looking to get on a board, see what they have to offer the board, speak to the chair to see if there's any particular skill set that they're looking for to add to the board, and people without just a one-issue agenda for a specific job for the board or committee.
Mr. Stone?
My support also comes by attending the meetings and events. I think the recreation events and old home days, and they're all great events. I do attend a lot of meetings, and it's very time consuming, and there is no pay. I'm a volunteer. As far as appointing to commissions and boards, I look at education, but more important to me is, does this person have common sense? Thank you.
Ms. Hawes?
Unfortunately, I can't attend many of the board meetings or committee meetings. I do work, as everybody knows, and they've thrown it back at me, a few jobs. So it's hard for me to attend those. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate what they do or how much time they give of themselves. I certainly do. And sitting on the council has shown me that even more. Mrs. Denise. Denise does a very good job of finding out information about the people that apply for positions, and she fills us in when she can. I would like to take that one step further if I remain on the council. I would like to have the people that apply for these positions come before the council and tell us, introduce themselves and tell us who they are and why they're interested, so that we can all see for ourselves and know who we are selecting when we select them. Because unfortunately, bless you, there are a lot of people in this town that I don't know. There are a lot of new people in this town. And this way, we would know who we are appointing and why we are appointing them, why they're involved. Slate of officers, a slate of people that I'm working with, we're trying to figure out a way that we can compensate these fire and ambulance volunteers without putting a burden on the taxpayers. And if elected, I'm sure we will continue to look at that. There are several things that have been tossed around, and I think that one of them at least might be doable, and I think they should be compensated in some way. I do like that idea of the letter. I think that's an excellent idea. But I also know that the ministers in the town holding an event that honors and appreciates the volunteers.
Time. Mr. Nottingham.
Pretty much communication, appreciation. I've over 40 years being a volunteer in the towing business for multiple police stations. I will know what it does to family and friends. I'd like to see some more appreciation, some tax incentives for these volunteers that help out. As far as people appointed to boards and whatnot, just like the rest of the board said, serious experience and common sense is what we need. Not just somebody to take a seat, just to get a vote. Thank you.
Mr. Carey.
I prepared this, I'm going to read it, and Brian's going to hit on some of the things that have been said. First, you need to allow these boards and commissions to do their job, and not try to micromanage them. Be willing to discuss the recommendations in a professional manner and come to a mutual understanding. In the recent past, many longtime board members have resigned or were not reappointed. While I respect the council's authority to make these appointments, I have noticed that they no longer send a letter of appreciation for, in some cases, years of dedicated service. I would recommend that this be done in the future. As far as appointees, I think we need to look for qualified candidates. We need people on the board that are capable of doing the job. I think, that if we have them come before the council, speak with the applicants, and get a better understanding of their ability to fill the position, and not just look at a list of names of who we know or like. I mean, I think it's great that, different members of the council reach out and talk to people. I don't think, they always go to the chairs of the commission and ask their opinion on applicants, as I'm the chairman of the planning board for the past 4 years. Very rarely has anybody asked my opinion. I think that you need people on there, though, that are going to do the job, and they need to know what they're doing. I kind of lost my train of thought here for a second. But I guess I'll do that.
Ms. Johnston. Surprise.
It's tough enough to get the community involved in just attending town meetings, never mind being a volunteer where you're scheduled to go into meetings every week, multiple times a week, and so forth. New members are always a necessity with volunteer programs, and I too agree that any appointees shouldn't come complete with baggage of personal agendas and so forth, because it's really not in the best interest of the town. Appreciation and acknowledgement is key. I too like the idea of the letter. It's a simple gesture, but it shows you're thinking of somebody who's putting their effort out there. And I'd seen somewhere that they were thinking of tax rebates for volunteers and things, and that's not really anything that the town council has privy to do on their own. It's regulated by the General Assembly state, so that would be something that would have to be worked at a higher level.
Okay. We're a little less than halfway through our questions, and a little less than halfway through the time we allotted, but deference especially to the candidates. I'd like to just take a 5-minute recess, and I'll gather the meeting back in 5 minutes.
If anyone is very dehydrated, I have 15 bottles of water over here.
Zoning, planning, council, everything.
If you were to speak with a business owner who is looking to expand or relocate their business, you do not know anything about the town of Foster, how would you describe the community? What selling points would you use to convince them that it's a community they might well want to build or relocate the business in? What advantages do we have over neighboring communities or businesses? Ms. Johnston.
If I were speaking with a business owner who wanted to expand or relocate to Foster at this time, I would say a light industrial business would probably be a good fit. Several times I've reached out to our residents of Foster to see what they think. I get a lot of different feedback on different businesses that they would like to see come into town, some feasible, some not feasible. But we need to get the zoning enhanced so that we are not just the town that connects Connecticut to Situate.
It's a good one.
Do I have your vote?
Well, if I was to explain Foster to someone, I love the community, I love the everybody knows everybody, and it's a friendly community. Business is something else. It would depend on the type of business that wanted to come here. We can have a big wish list of grocery stores and banks, which I would love, and I would use them. But when studies have been done, there's a few problems. One problem is our population doesn't support it, a lot of those kinds of businesses. Another problem is we don't have city sewer and city water. So we have a lot of challenges when it comes to a lot of different kinds of businesses. Lisa mentioned warehousing. I agree with that, self-storage. Advantages over other towns. We have Route 6. We have a lot of traffic on Route 6, but we come up short with the lack of public sewer and water. So I would encourage the zoning to be changed, which we talked about before, and the kind of businesses that we can sustain, which is probably light industry, warehousing. A lot of people don't like this, but solar farms are generating revenue. And that's pretty much it. We just have a lot of challenges for a lot of the businesses on our wish lists.
Mr. Stone?
I would say that our community has pride along with an appreciation for rural character. Our location between Providence and Hartford, with access to 395, 295, with tax incentives. Thank you.
Ms. Lawson?
Truly an interesting question, and I agree with much of what Ms. Rogers had to say. I think for me, if I were interested in starting a business here, one of the things that I would like to hear, is, and I think it's true about our town, is that we're a town that honors our history and roots as a rural community, and that we intend to maintain the rural nature of our community. That said, we also have to recognize that Route 6 is probably one of the most important assets that we have for increasing income to the town and developing businesses. And if I were to be elected and I were to have to deal with this directly, I would promise a business owner who is interested in relocating on Route 6, because there are a lot of cars that go by every day, that we would do the best we possibly could to make Route 6 look a whole lot better than it looks right now. When we first moved here into this town, Route 6 didn't look anything the way it looks right now. There are buildings that haven't been, I consider, to be abandoned. And again, keep in mind, I did a lot of enumeration, and I got to drive up and down that road a lot, and you see things that make Route 6 be ugly. And business people might shy away from it, because no one's going to locate a business next to a vacant motel that's got, you know, the windows falling out at this particular point in time. So I would promise a business owner that we would do our very best to clean up Route 6, to make it an attractive road between Situate and Connecticut. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm dying to have a coffee shop in this town, where there could be some public discourse, where you could talk to people, meet people, chat with people, etc. And I would also assure them that our town planner would be doing the best that he or she could to enhance development within the town, because that's the role of the town planner.
Time. Mr. Nottingham?
Fortunately, until we address the zoning, there's not a lot we have to offer right now. I would suggest that we first thing that we do is address it so that we can bring the business. I also would like to see an economic development committee put together, volunteers, of course, no expense to the town, and put something together so that we could invite these people and show them our rural-ness, put some kind of flyer out, something to promote some business. Yeah.
Ms. Hawes?
Well, they have a lot better ideas than I do. We have to change the zoning, we all know that, it has to change. The prior council, we, through John Restivo, we wrote out plans for tax breaks for new businesses. Well, we haven't seen new businesses come in yet, but they are in place. But there are still other things that need to be changed through zoning. I am proud of this town. I am not proud of Route 6. To me, it's been an eyesore for more than half my life. We are in the process of cleaning it up. I hope people have noticed that we have someone that's been going around up and down Route 6 and getting people to clean up their act, and I think it's starting to make a difference. I consider Route 6 a blank slate, and I would like to see some people come in and paint it, and paint a place where we could have a cafe, a place where we could have another restaurant besides Shady Acres, which I love, but I'd like another choice. There are other things that we can bring in. We just have to work on the zoning, get it in place, and then a planner in place also that has the time to help us invite people to this town and love it as we do. I think we could sustain the businesses along Route 6 if they were there. Thank you.
Mr. Carey?
Well, to describe the town, I guess I'd say it's a small town, it's very close to nature, and we enjoy our peace and quiet. It's tough to answer about selling points, as it really depends on the type of business. I would say for some types of business that there would be very little competition, and that would be a plus. We have good access off of I-395 in Connecticut also. Our commercial property tax is taxed at the same rate as our residential property. I know that some of the other candidates have hit on, bringing different types of businesses in, and the warehousing and different things. I think, those things are all fine. There's properties that would sustain them, we're trying to find out where they can be placed. But I think, people say, different businesses won't survive and there's not enough people in the town. But it's a sad situation because a lot of the people I speak to, especially the elderly people, they don't like to have to go somewhere out of town. It's tough to drive even to Situate for them or back down into Connecticut. I mean, Route 6 is scary, and some of those shopping center parking lots, they're death traps. We get a lot of business at the body shop. Believe me, I know every day there's people getting hit in there. And, it'd be nice to have some small retail and stuff. And I think if you get the planner maybe, and go out and reach out to successful business owners that have done this, I think people that have successful businesses in other towns would be able to make a business work here in Foster because there's a certain type of person that has that ability. And I think that's what we need, when the local guy just tries to buy 2 cartons of eggs and open a business, it doesn't work.
Mr. Franco?
Well, I guess I would agree with everyone. And as I was sitting here trying to think of some new things that I have, there is a tax incentive. Thank you, Mr. Restivo. I think people in Foster are eager for new businesses. It has to be a good new business. A coffee shop might be successful. I remember we had the Backdraft Cafe or pizza. Again, there's very little competition, so that's a good thing. Thinking back on my own history, when I was working full-time, I used to do my shopping on my way home from work. Now that I'm retired and I don't get to the big city as often, I think I would find something in town, for instance, a bank or a small grocery store would be helpful. But there are drawbacks to that. We don't have the infrastructure to do that. But I agree with Mr. Carey. There are older people that don't want to be traveling out on Route 6. So hopefully we can come up with some ideas. Thank you.
You get everybody on that one?
Question number 8. Many towns in the state of Rhode Island hire town managers to assist with day-to-day operations in town businesses. As a member of the town council, would you support hiring a town manager in some capacity? Ms. Hawes?
No. I don't think we need one. I think we have a great town clerk. She handles so much of what goes on as far as new people coming into town or any of the problems that arise. We're going to have a great,
We can mention her name.
we're going to have a great finance director again. Kelly's coming back, yes. And she handles a lot of the management that goes on there. So between the two of those people, we have some pretty good people in place in the town hall. I don't think we need a town manager at this time. We need a planner, but we don't need a town manager. We've got two great people and we should rely on them and give them what they need to do their jobs.
Mr. Stone?
I would support a town manager. This would require us to do charter changes. But, again, we're looking at finances. This job would exceed $100,000, and I'm not sure how it would affect our town clerk. There's 20 town managers in Rhode Island, and there's 8 mayors. So I would support it if we thought we needed it. But at this present time, I think financially, we can't handle it.
Mr. Madiger?
No, I wouldn't support it. I think if we could pick up the communication between the boards and the people that work in the town hall, that would be able to do the job without them.
Mr. Carey?
The town manager has been brought up for many years. There are many advantages to a town manager. It would require a change to the town charter, and of course, with any new position, there is a question of cost. I would have to do some more analysis before I can support this position. I think that, town manager is a good thing, but we have certain people in town, so the jobs kind of overlap. So if there was a way to combine that position with other positions to make it structure it different, so maybe there's a little more oversight of the, like some type of person that's in charge of all the town departments. So things are kind of out of sync, and not everybody's communicating, and sometimes there's problems, especially lately since we have so many new department heads. There's a learning curve. I mean, I've been through it. In the last 2 years, being chair of the planning board, I had to deal quite a bit with the planner. And I'm on my 3rd planner in 2 years. And to try to get anything accomplished as far as zoning changes and stuff, it's very difficult when you're trying to get the new planner up to speed. Not that they're not capable, but they don't have, you go into an office and there's piles of paper up to the ceiling and you've got to go through these. So they spent the first 3 months just trying to figure out what's going on and taking, different notes from different people that are involved. But it's very hard, so it slows the process down. So I think we need to be consistent and try to keep our employees here and make them want to stay. And I think that's very important. And maybe we can make this work without a town manager. Thank you.
Ms. Johnston?
At this time, a town manager is not only not in the budget, it's really not needed either. We currently have a town clerk and a financial officer who efficiently run things at the town hall. And the knowledge that they share along with the love for this town actually just shines through. You go in the town hall and you see what's going on in here. You really do. And they all work together in harmony, and anytime I've ever needed anything at the town hall, it's been easy peasy.
Ms. Lawson?
Interesting question about the town manager, in my mind, comes down to the issue, if you had to pick one, town manager or planner, which one would have more added value to the town? From my perspective, a town planner has a whole list of deliverables they have to produce for us. They have to produce grants, they have to take care of the comprehensive plan, and I could go on and on and on. A manager, an administrator, not so much. What's their deliverables exactly? Particularly if we have a competent town treasurer and a competent clerk. The issue from my perspective may be getting those folks, along with the department chairs, to work more effectively as the administration of the town. I don't know if they have meetings that involve all of those people or not. It would seem to me that would make a whole lot of sense. But again, if you have competent department heads in a town this size, certainly we don't need a town manager. And if I had to pick planner or manager, I'm picking the one that's got deliverables.
Ms. Rogers?
I definitely would support a town manager. I would say what Cheryl said, but she said that a while ago. We have a town clerk and we have a finance person who handles the human resources. They're both very efficient, but I don't want to talk about them specifically, their personalities. But as long as you have good qualified people in those two jobs, this town is small enough. We don't have the number of employees that warrants the expense of a town manager. I think the way we're doing it now is fine, as long as we have qualified people, and thank God Kelly Russ is coming back to us, I will say that.
She's coming home, is what she does.
Mr. Franco?
I would not support a town manager. I agree. We have a town clerk that does a wonderful job, and we have a financial treasurer that's coming back. And as she said to me, she's coming home. She feels very strongly about Foster. I think that the monies would be better spent if we had them available for a town planner.
Okay, question number 9. The town budget is approximately 1/3 local school, 1/3 regional school, and 1/3 municipal expenses. What do you feel the major drivers are for recent tax increases? As a council member, what specific plan would you propose to curb this trend? What timetable do you foresee for any tax relief to materialize for town taxpayers? Ms. Rogers?
Okay. What is driving the tax increases? There's a number of things. We were lucky for years when the schools were able to come forward with 0 or 1% increases in the budget. We were also lucky in some years that our population shift was less than Gloucester's. That's changed. We've been realizing the population shift, so it's costing us more for our students. This school is going to be coming forward with, from what I'm told, the region, with 4% increases. We also have contractual obligations for the teachers in the schools, our police officers, our staff. The water supply board came on board. That's a payment that we have to pay. That was a driver. The elderly and disabled tax exemption now, instead of freeze, will help this eventually, but it's not going to be for a long, long time. A tax table to see any tax relief? Not for a long, long time, unless something major happens, unless we get some kind of major business that contributes hundreds of thousands of tax dollars. I don't see it happening. I wish that I had a better answer than that, but I think that's the reality of it.
Ms. Hawes?
Totally agree with Heidi. That's the reality. Budgets are what they are, contracts are what they are. We have to honor them. We have to pay our employees. I don't see a tax relief coming anytime soon. I think the only way that we can see any relief is, like she said, if we get new businesses in town that are paying and contributing to our tax base. At this time, we have to honor that whole, the third, and the third. There's no way around it. There's nothing we can do. Reality is what it is, and you all need to understand that.
Mr. Carey?
In the current fiscal year, the regional schools was a large part of the increase, and it's expected to continue over the next several years. The Payne School budget is also expected to rise. I would work with the school committee to look at options to decrease expenses. Health care costs are also on the rise, and we need to dissect the budget and find any unnecessary expenses. Tax relief is not realistic. We can only try to minimize our tax increases at this point. Heidi had hit on, the Providence Water Board. And, every year, with interest rates going up, it's really going to get tough because we had to put extra money in. We were paying $175,000 when the plan started over a 10-year period with a balloon payment at the end. And I think the council had to raise it up for the current year to like $230 just to try to keep up with the interest because they're charging us interest on the money that we're paying them. When that's done, of course, that will help, that money won't be expended any longer, but it's still, it's tough to, overcome that. That's a big part of our budget. When we talk $100,000, there's a lot of uses to use for $200 and something thousand. And we could pay roads, that would cover our whole paving budget for a year, So I think we need to look at a lot of things. And I think there was some talk about the businesses coming in. You'll get some tax revenue from business, and it'll help, but it's not going to be enough. And I think, they don't want a full-time planner, some people are saying, but I think those advantages of those grants will really help our town. And that every dollar that we can get in grant money will offset the money we need to raise in taxes.
Ms. Lawson?
Again, another very interesting question. And I must admit, I got a different view of the regional budget after talking with one of the moderators in tonight's panel. And I said to her at some point, the town can't do anything about the regional budget. It comes to the town, it's been passed by the region, we live with it because that's what happens. And what she said to me was, well, but not quite true, and she was right. We need to have more engagement in the regional budget planning process. And school department budgets are driven by personnel costs. Maybe, for all intents and purposes, almost everything else is just chatter in the budget, because what costs the money is personnel. And there's not a whole lot to do about it, but we should certainly take a look at it. From the perspective of the local school, I'm not quite sure why we now are paying a portion of Dr. Barnes' salary for him to be the quote-unquote superintendent of the Payne School. When my little kids were in the Payne School, we had a combined principal superintendent position. It's a small school. It's got 300 plus kiddos. I'm not sure that we couldn't go back and at least save some money on the Payne School. It's difficult to speak to this kind of question because the devil is in the details around budgets. And in order to understand budgets, you really have to wade in full force to understand where the costs come from. Police department budget increased by 5.6% from last year. I'm not sure what drove that cost. You'd have to be looking at the specific line items. So I don't see us able to quote-unquote curb the trend, but I do think what needs to happen is that there has to be more involvement in the development of the regional budget through participation at that regional budget meeting. And then secondly, we need to start paying attention to the specific line items in the budget to see. But I agree, I don't think there's a lot to do.
Ms. DeFranco?
Well, I can't say too much more, except for I would strongly urge people to attend the regional school department budget hearings and to attend when they have the financial town meeting for the regional budget. I've attended, and there are a handful of Foster people. And as Mrs. Lawson said, once it comes to us, it's been voted on, that's it. Our biggest thing is to get out there and hear what's going on. I will commend the school committee at Kane School. They've worked with us diligently. We've had tasks where they've even taken less money from our budget when they've been able to do things. They've done things with their capital funds that relieved us. We also have our contractual obligations. My biggest thing would be to attend the regional financial town meetings.
Ms. Johnston?
Like everyone was saying, there's not much tax relief on the horizon. The Providence Water's got roughly 7 more years. You know, that will help 30 years in the middle school. We can try to keep our spending to the minimum, but if the budgets keep increasing for the big dollar items in town, there's not really much you can do. I would try to get more involvement by notifications on social media and the dreaded Facebook. But I think that's an accessible way for people to see what's going on in town. I know a lot of people have no idea when meetings are, what they're about, what's going on. I know before I got involved, I had no idea what was going on in town. There's no signs, there's no sandwich boards out in front of the meeting halls or places where you see there's a meeting for this, there's a meeting for that, get involved, prompting people, even if you have to shame them into coming to the town hall. You know, a lot of people say, oh, if you don't vote, then shut up. And I kind of feel like that. But if people don't know what's going on, don't have the opportunity to come to the meetings and get involved in the meetings, then they're just blindsided by the time they get their tax bill. And they have no idea what's going on. And you know, like Denise said, there's just a handful of people that go to these budget meetings, the regional budget meeting, and maybe if they had more forewarning and something in the mail on social media that they could get involved willingly, they wouldn't go kicking and screaming to pay their tax bill.
Mr. Stone?
Well, everybody said it already. The major drivers, in my opinion, are the 2 schools and the police department. They're all doing a great job. The only way we're going to curb this trend a little bit is to try to regionalize the grammar school, the school we're in. And I don't see a lot of relief coming from that, but that would take care of Dr. Barnes' salary. That would remove him because we'd be under the regional umbrella. I don't see a lot of relief.
Okay, Mr. Geiger?
Pretty much covered everything. I don't see any relief on the horizon either. Participation in the schools, just like everybody else said. I don't see much more we can do.
Ms. Moss?
You have to.
Oh, we're next question? Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I lost track. Question 10. Cat's out of the bag, Sean. I'll put it back in the middle up again, that's my fault.
That's good, thanks.
Question 10. The town of Foster has numerous existing small businesses in place. If you were elected to the town council, what would you do to promote and assist these existing small businesses? Ms. Johnston?
There are several small businesses in Foster, and I would encourage an atmosphere where the planner could become a great resource for them, as well as promoting the business directory on the town website, and promoting a small business association within Foster itself.
Ms. Lawson?
Yet another very interesting question. First of all, I think what needs to happen is I think the town council needs to review all policies, zoning regulations, et cetera, that might impact the ability of a small business to be viable in this particular town. So I think the town council clearly has a role there. We need to eliminate as much as possible barriers to doing business while maintaining the things that we value about our town, the rural character, et cetera, et cetera. One of the proposals, we also need to stop bugging people. No one likes to be bugged. And when I started talking to small business people around town, one of the things that bugged them was the tangible property tax. So for example, one very prominent businessman in town told me that his father had bought this very expensive piece of equipment many years ago, and he's still using that piece of equipment, and he still has a tangible property tax on it. I took some time to see how much revenue we generate from the tangible property tax, and it's not worth anything. So let's remove the thing that aggravates business. Again, to me, symbolism is incredibly important. And while the tangible property tax does not generate much revenue, if we take it away, we're sending a message to those business people that we understand what you go through, we're going to do what we can to help you, and that's the kind of message that we need to communicate. Remove barriers to doing business, utilize our town planner to help them identify development and coordination opportunities, and try to move the town forward as much as possible on that initiative.
Ms. Rogers?
Well, I agree with I think Lisa said it. There's all the small businesses on the town website. I think that's helpful for people who come in and are just looking to see what we have. The business association idea would be good. I think easing some of the regulations so that these businesses are able to expand would be helpful. It's just kind of tough. When you're a small business owner, I think somebody said it earlier, you kind of have to promote yourself. Joe maybe was saying that you need the kind of person to promote their own business, but I think that, you know, a few of the things that we're doing with the town website are helpful, and just easing some of the regulations to allow businesses to expand.
Ms. Laws?
I think that taking away the tangible taxes would be very beneficial, and again, agree with Gail. It would send a message to the town, the small businesses in town. I had no idea we had so many. They're hidden, and there are a lot, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I think we should do everything in our power to help them and to foster the idea that people can come here and run their own small business if they so choose. It doesn't impact anybody because most of us don't know about them. I think a planner would be able to, they would be able to work with a planner that, if we had a full-time planner especially, I think she or he would be beneficial to them and could help them in many different ways. I would encourage and do anything I can to help them.
Mr. Stone?
I too would support a small business association to bring the owners together to discuss their ideas and their problems, and for them to work together. I understand about the tangible tax, but financially, whatever we remove in taxes, we have to find money for. You can't just say, okay, we're going to do away with the tangible tax. You need to find the income to replace it. Thank you.
Mr. Franco?
Well, as people have already mentioned, there is a small business list on the town website. I do believe there is a small, or a Foster Business Association on the dreaded Facebook. I'm not sure about that, but I think I've seen that. To promote and assist them, I agree, the planner is a useful resource. I wish people would utilize her more. I think she has a lot of good ideas, and I think she's going to be very helpful to us, and I think she would be helpful to small businesses.
Okay, Mr. Natiger.
I'd like to enact a 5-year tax freeze to help stimulate businesses. Over 30 years ago, in the city of Warwick, I was allowed a 5-year tax freeze, and I was able to grow my business. It lasted over 30 years. I think that would help promote some of the businesses in town, and it certainly wouldn't hurt the town. We wouldn't be losing any tax money, just any increases in that 5 years.
Is that?
So,
Mr. Carey?
Well, first of all, I would speak to the business owners and, ask them what they need and what would help them. I think that's very important to communicate. I think in the past, we had an economic development commission, and I think we might want to consider resurrecting that and have them work with the planning board to help us promote these businesses. I know there's talk about tangible tax. I think we're really looking for sources of revenue, and I just can't see removing any revenue at this point. I mean, we need income. I think, maybe some of the smaller home-based businesses and stuff, maybe just, out of their houses, maybe we can consider that, but as far as, larger businesses, remove tangible tax completely would be, I think, absurd at this point. But I think, we need income. We need income sources, so we need to, keep things in place that are there, and then I think we just got to work to get the planner, to get people in this town to open these businesses, and they need the hours to do that. So it goes back to that same thing, you can't do things if you don't have employees working. We've been lucky in the past, we've had planners that work far more hours than they were compensated for. And they, that's a certain type of person that does that. But you can't blame the person for doing their 30 hours a week or 26 hours a week. That's what they're paid to do. And they have a life, and they're off to do that. Some people are just go over the top. And you got to appreciate people like that when you have them. And obviously, we have to really consider that in the future.
Question 11. The town of Foster owns and maintains numerous public playing fields. Additional playing fields will be brought online in the near future. As a council member, what would you do, if anything, to complete the ongoing Phillips Field project on Route 94? How do you propose increasing usage of these fields and funding their ongoing maintenance and upkeep? Ms. Hawes.
I have no idea. We've been fighting this for 2 years. I just want to see us utilize the grant and get it done. Every time we take a step forward, we take 10 back, because balls might fly out into the street. So now we got to look at how we're going to protect the people going by, because it's not a big enough field. There have been so many obstacles. It's very frustrating sometimes to sit on this side of the table. I want to be over there yelling this way. And people don't always understand this. Sometimes our hands are tied because we have to stop and look into something else and check it out and validate it and then move on from there. I'm not sure. I'm being totally honest with you. I'm not sure. If anybody has a solution, then they sure haven't shared it with us, because we've been looking for them. We have a $400,000 grant. We just awarded it to a company to do the first phase of the field. So I'm hoping that we are starting to move in that direction to get it done.
Mr. Franco.
Okay, the grant expires in November of We have awarded the first phase to be completed for the, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know the terminology, but doing the grading and getting the fields in place. Actually, the grading had been done previously, and we got an extension because it wasn't safe at that time, so we now have an extension. So it is until November of 2019. So we are moving forward with that. Hopefully, in the bid, it did say to be completed by June of 2019, so we have some leeway. To increase the usage of these fields and funding for ongoing maintenance and upkeep. The usage, we had, Mr. Chippendale came and spoke to us at one of our council meetings, and it was very informative. He did not come as Representative Chippendale, he came as a fan of baseball, softball. Again, I'm not sure what the terminology is. What would have been a good draw for us would be have women's softball. Our field is not big enough. Our field is only big enough to have 12-year-olds and younger. The field at Woody Loudon also accommodates that. So how we can increase the usage, I'm not sure. To the funding and ongoing maintenance and upkeep, I'm hoping that there will be a concession stand, and that will certainly help us. Thank you.
Ms. Lawson?
I must admit, when I read this question, I tried to figure out, and again, both of my kids were into sports. My husband coached Little League for a significant period of time, and I couldn't figure out where the numerous public playing fields were. Because for me, numerous means 10, 15, and that's clearly not the case in this town. I could only come up with 3, but again, my kids played a long time ago. So that confused me just a tad. I mean, as a member of the community, I've heard all kinds of things about the Phillips Field project on Route 94. I've been appalled at how awful it looks, because it really does look terrible right now. And I guess if I were to be elected to the town council, I would try to get myself very well educated as to the grant, the funding source, the parameters by which that grant has to be dealt with, as well as to understand some of the issues associated with what's already happened to that field. It appears to me from a very amateur perspective that a whole lot of topsoil was taken off that field. And I wonder where it all went, because topsoil is valuable. So I'm not quite sure what's happened, but I would have to spend some time educating myself on it.
Mr. Stone?
Okay, this project is in progress. We voted, it was voted on and passed. We awarded the bid. There is a little issue with a fence that the insurance company wants us to put up, which is 25 feet high. So the baseballs do not roll out into 94. And the kids go chase them and they get run over by a car. Sounds a little far-fetched to me, but I suppose it could happen. So we're gonna have to look for funding for the fence. To my knowledge, we would have DPW maintain the fields just like they do our other fields. And the recreation director would be in charge of scheduling, like he is now. And to answer your question about the topsoil, they buried it. That's why we sat on it.
All the questions tonight come from me.
Okay, good.
I'm glad to know, Bill. Thank you.
Mr. Carey?
I'm sure many of you know the history of the field. And the property was bought on a grant from DEM back in, I'd say, 2010, maybe 2007. And there was $70,000, I think, to buy property for recreational use. So obviously, property people, a lot of people say, well, why can't we use it for other things? We can't. It's a recreation grant. They approach DEM and it's not allowed. The state won't allow us to change the use. So we got over the last election, there was a question for money for recreation of $400,000. We were awarded $400,000 grant from that question. And so we are moving forward at a slow pace, but there is a timeline for November of next year, which, you know, sometimes you can get extensions. But the field is approved and we have the money coming in. We need to just finish it and do what we can to get it done. I mean, if we don't have enough, possibly, back to grant writing. We need somebody that can go after these things. Maybe there's money out there to pay for the thing. Do a grant. For the town, we have, maybe, you know, we have to pay a percentage of it, but we can get maybe a 75-25 grant to cover that. You know, but we don't know if we don't have somebody that has the time to do that and look at these things. These things are really important. There's thousands of different types of grants out there. It's a full-time job just to do that. But I think, you know, to offset some of the maintenance costs, you know, there's a lot of the fields, they have signs on the fence from different businesses and stuff, you know, so you can charge an annual fee to advertise your business, you know, and get some money that way.
Time.
Thank you.
Mr. Nagger?
I agree with Mr. Carey, looking for the grant money to finish it. As far as maintenance and upkeep, concession stand's a good idea. Some fundraising. Also, I sponsored teams for over 30 years, and it's a good way to bring in some money to keep up with the maintenance and the upkeep. Also, volunteers. We used to have the Little League players volunteer at the time, as long as they were playing there. Boy Scouts did it for projects as well. I think we could work with all that. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
First, I'll say that I was not in favor of the purchase of that particular piece of land for the ball fields. I thought the location of it, being in school, was great, but the piece of land itself was not a good piece of land for that project. It ended up costing a lot more with fill, so I wasn't in favor of that. But it was approved by taxpayers at a financial town meeting for the purchase, so that's why people need to go to these meetings, because just that was not something I thought was wise. But it's here, and we have the grant for it that's now been awarded. We have to see it through. Everybody has been talking about the size of the field or the regulation, and I know it's Little League kids can play there, but it was the older kids, I think over 12 or whatever, which is the same field that we have at Woody Loudon. So we have two fields that are identical. Sometime in the future, and also Woody Loudon is the most expensive building to maintain in town. So at some point, somebody may want to look at, a council may want to look at selling, I hate to say this because people might get really freaked out, but selling Woody Loudon, building a senior center somewhere, a better location and a more efficient building, and maybe using some proceeds to maintain this field, or finish it, or again, the grants would be really important for the second phase of this.
Ms. Johnston?
Well, because of the way in which the grant was written, it has to be followed to the T, and the field has to go forward as it is. Unfortunately, if I had my way, I probably would have said, let's cut our losses and repay the grant and sell the property and walk away from it, because it doesn't fit what the town needs, it never did. And you end up, like Heidi was saying, with two properties with similar ball fields and just more of an expense to the town. So I don't know how that was considered a win-win, but attending financial meetings really needs to be promoted so that things like this don't happen in the future.
Moving to question 12. Citizens of the town of Foster appear to be shockingly divided on itself, which makes it harder for town business to be done. If you were elected to the town council, what specific steps or actions would you take to bridge partisan divides in order to serve all the members of the community, not just those of your party base? Mr. Carey.
This is kind of a straightforward question. You just got to be willing to listen to all opinions and make informed decisions in the best interest of the town as a whole. I think everybody knows that the best way to come to the best solutions and things is to discuss them in detail. You know, you shouldn't be going to a meeting and know how you're going to vote on a particular item before you even discuss it. You know, you've got to listen to all sides of it. You know, there's so many things that maybe you didn't think of. And I think this open conversation in all circumstances, no matter what it is very helpful. And I think we just got to work together, no matter who's on this council, and, you know, do what's best for the town, because that's what's important. You know, people are worried about taxes, people want their services, and we got to make sure they're maintained. So let's just work together. That's all I can say.
Ms. Hawes.
Well, I think I've done that this time around, and Wolf on this council, and I think we work well together. I've been accorded respect. I do speak my piece. We don't agree a lot, but we do agree sometimes, and we work to the best of our ability, and I would continue to do that no matter who I sat with. We're here to serve the people. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm going to sit on this side of the table. I am here at the will of the people to do a job and what's best for Foster. And that's the way I approach it and the way I would continue to approach it. I don't care who's sitting next to me. We need to work together. Thank you.
Ms. Johnston.
Well, civility is not dead, but it certainly is resting. We need to maintain a level of respect among all of us. And a lot of this stems right from the home. Respect begins at home. It goes through the schools and into the workplace. You use it at stores, on the phone, in emails. A lot of times things you write come across very differently on social media. And I think a lot of times there are kamikaze social media keyboard experts out there just stirring it all up, and it doesn't help anything at all. And that's something I think that we can all strive for is better civility no matter where you go.
Ms. Lawson.
Town of Foster is a small town. It's my belief that we as the citizens of this community are more alike than we're different. We value our rural lifestyle, we value our kids, we value our schools. Again, we're more the same than we're different. That said, I do believe symbolism is important. And I think we as a council need to be very, very mindful of doing things that would divide rather than unite us. I very much agree that once you're a member of the council, you act in the best interest of the town and not in the best interest of the Republican Party and not in the best interest of the Democratic Party. Act in the best interest of the town, the residents of the town. And I think it's important that the people who are elected to the council truly believe we're more alike than we're different. And truly trust that people have the best interest of the town in mind, and truly believe that we're a civil society and we can comport ourselves as society. I'll give you an example. One of our moderators did Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat down the table when she sat up the table. And I thought that was brilliant on her part, because this is a forum, this is not a debate. I didn't want the Republicans to sit down there and the Democrats to sit up here, because from that symbolic perspective, we're saying we're different and not the same. That we value different things and not the same. And I don't believe that's the case. We want the best for the town.
Mr. Stone?
Well, I already serve all of Gloucester residents, and I would encourage my counterparts to do the same.
Ms. Rogers?
I was a little confused by this question, because being in the audience at all of the town council meetings, like over the last 20 years, I don't think I've ever seen a council get along as well as this one does. Cheryl is a lone wolf, like she said, but I see nothing but mutual respect for this council, this particular council. And as for the rest of it, I don't think I could say it any better than Cheryl did earlier. When you're sitting on this side of the table, you're not a Republican or a Democrat, and you're here to serve the people. So I don't think I can really add anything else to that question.
Ms. DeFranco?
Cheryl and I have talked about this many times and agree that when you're sitting on this side of the table, you're not a Republican or a Democrat, you're voting for the town. I've voted across party lines many times over the past 6 years. I have been the lone Republican, as Cheryl and I had talked about. I did have an independent, but I was a lone Republican. So I think that I can work well with people, and I think that our council has shown that. Cheryl is respected, she states her feelings, she gives her thoughts, and we either move on or agree or disagree. So, thank you.
Mr. Madigan?
Well, pretty much everything's been covered again as usual. Communication and participation is pretty much what needs to be done here. Getting along, involving everyone, not just the chosen few. That's what it's going to take to bring everybody together. That's it.
Question 13. The school system in the town of Foster is partially regionalized with the town of Gloucester. Do you think the town of Foster should pursue full regionalization of the school system or keep the current system in place, and why? Ms. Lawson?
Complicated question. There's a lot of talk, excuse me, about the fact that we would quote unquote save money, hence reduce the tax burden, or at least maintain the same tax burden if we fully regionalized. The devil is in the details. As far as I know, there has not been an actuarial study that's looked at what the actual costs would be. For example, would we give Dr. Barnes a pay cut? Would he lose his $30,000 that he's now getting from the town of Foster if he was now running a fully regionalized district? I don't know the answer to that question. What happens with the 3 contracts? This just says Foster, but I'm assuming it also meant Gloucester. Those are 3 different contracts. Which set of teachers make the most money? Which contract would work at that point in time in a fully regionalized? Would we save money? Would it cost us more money? No one has, as far as I can tell, done the due diligence that's necessary to make that kind of decision. It's easy to say regionalization will save money because we'll get more money from the state. It's more than just that. So someone's got to take the time to wade into it all the way up to your waist and figure out what the numbers really are. So don't know the answer to that. That requires some study, some careful study. In addition to the money part, do we want to give up control of our paying school? Don't know the answer to that either. And again, I think that's something where a town forum would need to be convened to hear what parents had to say, to hear what long-term residents had to say, to hear what people like me whose kids came out of the paying school had to say, or your kids that came out of the paying school, before any kind of decision like that could be made. And I will not jump the gun and sit on the regionalization side just because that seems to be the more quote-unquote more popular approach right now. I don't think we have enough data to make the decision.
Mr. Stone?
Okay, yes, I would support regionalization. I've already made a motion at the council meeting, and for our president of the council to send Gloucester Council a letter to meet and discuss this venture. Thank you.
Mr. Carey?
I think we should look into the possibility of regionalization. I think there's, ways to, we gotta weigh the pros and cons, obviously, of, what regionalization would do to the town as far as our school system. I think, there's ways to cut costs without full regionalization. And if Gloucester's not willing to regionalize their elementary schools along with it, it wouldn't work. It goes back quite a few years. Dr. Barnes, when he was first superintendent for the region, came to Payne School. We had a meeting in the library with the school committee, and they discussed regionalizing the elementary school. It was very interesting. I found out a lot of things I didn't realize, And one of the things was that the school would probably remain even if we regionalize, because we have to have a school in a certain area. But also, there's a lot of things that, when the cost, the savings really isn't that significant. There's certain things we would save money on, but there's other things that we're already initiating cost sharing with Gloucester in a lot of things with the schools now that we didn't previously. So I don't think regionalization is definitely the answer to anything. I don't know if it's going to save us a lot of money and is it worth control of our school. But I would look into it. I think it's something we should definitely have a discussion. And I've spoken with members of the school committee, and that's what they're going for, to get more facts. We can make an informed decision.
Ms. Johnston?
I think the town would be wise to pursue full regionalization. More information obviously is necessary to decide on if this is something that's feasible to do within the town. Finances trickle down, and it can either be a boost or be a destroyer. So if we can get our major expenses like this somehow under control, I think it would be a benefit for the whole town.
Ms. Hawes?
I'm opposed to regionalization unless there's a guarantee that we can maintain our Payne School and the pride that we have in it and the love that we have for it. I'm a product of this school right after it started, not too long after. I was here when we regionalized. I went to that meeting that the school committee had with my dad at the time, and my dad explained to them, when we went into regionalization, we went in feeling that we would be equal, that we would have equal say in each town. Shortly thereafter, Lorraine O'Connors took us to court, and she won because the numbers were against us, and they voted in favor of the 6-3 split. We lost control. We go along with what the school committee decides. There's only 3 of us, and there's 6 of them. So there was no even. And I don't say that they always disagreed. They didn't always disagree, but there were times when things weren't feasible or things weren't right. I would be in agreement if we could be assured that we can have equal say of what happens in our town. We should always be able to control it. As far as negotiating contracts, 3 contracts, that has to go before the labor board, and that has to be then formed into one. Right now, they are at the labor board as 3 separate units, and that's the way it would stay unless the people in each group decided to go before them and combine into one. So that's an unpredictable, and Dr. Bonds, he wouldn't take 30,000 from here, but he'd take 30,000 more as the regional
Time.
superintendent.
Mr. Franco?
Well, my background is education. I was a teacher for 35 years, mainly in special education, which people talk about regionalization. We are regionalized as a special ed department. We regionalize with Foster, Gloucester, Situate. So we are regionalized to an extent. I have not formulated a decision yet as to whether I would support it or not. There are days where I hear something and I think, oh yeah. And then I hear something else and I think, maybe not. Our letter to Gloucester was to sit down and see what the pitfalls would be. What would be concerns of people? It would be a public meeting. That means that everyone would be able to attend and voice your concerns, tell us what your concerns are, tell us why you are in favor or why you are against it, what you would want. So I think it's a step to look at what regionalization could look like, what wouldn't be available, what would be possible. So I haven't formulated my decision yet.
Ms. Rogers?
I think we do need a few more answers. Ms. Lawson brought up a lot of good questions. I've always been a supporter of full regionalization. I think we really missed the boat years ago when we should have fully regionalized and we would have had a big financial incentive at that point. I think our kids all being on the same curriculum, because they're all going to end up at the middle school and then the high school, is beneficial for the kids. I don't get as concerned about the 6 to 3 school committee members in Gloucester having more, because I can't really see any Gloucester parent making a decision that's going to harm our kids when it would harm theirs as well. I understand what Cheryl said, that she thought it was going to be equal, but I really don't see how any school committee member, just because there are 6 of Gloucester, is going to make a decision that's going to harm our kids. It would also harm them. So that's not as big of a concern for me, but I would like to see what the financial benefit would be.
Mr. Daniger?
I don't know a lot about this regionalization. I have to say I'd like to see a guarantee as well. I wouldn't want to see our town lose control like it did originally. I think if what Cheryl said, if we could get a guarantee that we would be protected and be able to still maintain our school, that I'd consider.
So, we got through 13 of the 14 questions. The remainder of the meeting is going to be devoted to closing statements from each of the candidates. They'll be up to 3 minutes long, and I will tap the gavel at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, so you'll have 30 seconds remaining when I tap the gavel. It's a free forum. You can address the question that we did not address, or you can make general comments. The same rules apply. It's not a debate. It's a forum, so it's your time to speak. Okay. So the first speaker will be Mr. Carey.
Okay. So we hit on a lot of topics tonight, and I think many of them, a lot of us have similar views. A lot of things aren't as easy as they seem. I think, as far as getting people on boards and stuff, I think it'd be a great thing to have them come forward to the council and be interviewed, whether it's in executive session if they'd like. But I think the council as a whole, needs to talk to people that are going to be making changes to the town and see, you know, if they have certain abilities. And make it so the whole council can discuss, you know, the pluses and minuses of different people. Because I think the boards need to be a mix. You know, you don't want all businessmen on the board or all, you know, people that are against business on the board. You want different opinions. So you need to mix it up a little, because if everybody's on one side, you know, things can go wrong really, really fast. So I think, you know, we need open discussion, and, you know, we shouldn't all agree. And I don't think, as long as I've been on the planning board, no matter who was on that board, I don't think we ever agreed 100% on a lot of things. And I think, you know, you need a good mix on all your boards. And you need the best interest of the town to come out from a good discussion. And that always helps. Now, the last question was about volunteers in town, what we might be able to do, you know, to support them. And as far as volunteer fire departments, you know, and the ambulance, and having trouble attracting new people, and they're losing a lot of members. My running mates and myself, you know, we have been having meetings and discussions and things. And one of the things we were discussing was possible, some kind of a tax incentive for, you know, active members of the fire department and ambulance corps that are volunteers, that are possibly for, you know, in-town residents, you know, the tax incentive similar to the elderly tax incentive that they passed a few years ago, which would be on your future tax increases, you know, you get a dollar amount of the credit, you know, over 10 years, as long as you're actively serving, and there would be records from the departments. I mean, some of the firefighters thought that, you know, a stipend type system might work. So I think, you know, we got to look into ways to make it attractive, because they work very hard, and they take a lot of risk, and I think they deserve something. You know, it's a tough business, and if we had to pay them, we'd be in trouble.
Mr. Stone?
I'm going to answer the question. I'm very aware of what the volunteer firemen do and appreciate the volunteers. To prove that point, Cornerstone Farm is donating the proceeds from their final horse show of the season, which is this Saturday, to the 3 fire departments in town. As far as the tax credit, it's a great idea. Where do you draw the line? I'm a volunteer. And all the tax changes must go through the State General Assembly. Thank you.
Ms. Johnston?
I just wanted to go back on the businesses in town. A lot of the feedback that I got on the dreaded Facebook. Sorry. I got a lot of comments, good, bad, people want this, they want that, they want, you know, and I think the worst comment I got was keep dreaming. And, you know, unless you keep dreaming, nothing's ever going to change. The naysayers will always say it's never going to work, it's never going to work. But just because something failed in the past doesn't mean it's going to fail now. Everything's different. There's different people in town, different circumstances, the population has a different makeup. The business owner that had the business in the past that failed may not have done a good job. Maybe the new business owner would have a better go at it. There's all kinds of different reasons why something might work that didn't work in the past. And, you know, when I was growing up in Greene, we used to come to Foster to go out. I know that sounds weird. But we used to go, you know, my parents would line dance at Foster Country Club, and we'd go to the Foster Tavern and Shotton's Hill Inn, and I mean, when you leave Greene and go anywhere, it's like, but, You know, Foster Old Home Days was one of the biggest things as a kid that I remember coming to. So it is something that is important, and the rural aspects of this town have so much to offer, and the people in town have so much to offer. And I think if we just put our minds together, get more involved in the community, more involved in town meetings, financial meetings, what's going on, if we have a better platform to let the residents know what's going on, I think we would end up having a better town. Thanks. And let's make Foster great again.
Ms. Rogers?
That was funny. I don't have a big, long closing remark. I think we covered a lot of issues, and I hope everybody has a better understanding of difficulties with the baseball field and why our taxes aren't going to go down, and the limited things that we can do to keep them from going up. One thing Ms. Lawson said that impressed me tonight was actually that we are all more alike and have more in common than we don't. I think that was a really important statement. Aww. Okay, but I thought that was great, and I think that's important. That goes a long way. Whoever is sitting at the council after this election is going to have a real hard job, a hard couple of years to try to keep the taxes in line and not go over the 4% cap. So I just hope everybody learned something tonight, and thank you all for coming.
I don't have any rules about parks, I didn't know what to do. Mr. Nagger?
I as well didn't prepare anything for closing. I'm going to address the question. I was one of the people that met with Joe Carey and some of the fire departments as well as the ambulance corps. And I also would like to put some tax incentives in. We spoke about doing some fundraisers, maybe doing some more with the Foster Field over there with the Old Home Days, just to raise some more money for the fire departments and the ambulance. These guys work hard for us, and I believe that they really need the appreciation.
Ms. Lawson?
Well, I'm going to make some promises. I promise to be faithful to the rural character of this town. That's been important to me, to my husband, and to my children, and I think it's important to most of the people in this town. My next promise, I promise to do my due diligence on whatever issue comes forward to the town council for its consideration. I don't know enough about that sports field on Route 94. If I get elected, I will know about all of the issues associated with that field. I promise to understand the issue from as many perspectives as possible before I presume to make a decision that will affect the people that are involved. I think 3 promises are enough, but I do think Foster is great now.
Mr. Franco?
If I'm reelected, I certainly would appreciate it. I think that there are things that I know I had a list. I didn't make a promise, but I made a list of things I wanted to accomplish during these 2 years. I haven't accomplished any, to be honest with you. There's a lot that happens day to day. It's as council president, you're constantly taking things in. You have to consider all the council members. You have to consider the citizens. There are phone calls made from citizens. I spent a good portion of my weekend and past 2 days in regards to a bridge in town. I'm learning more about bridges than I knew before. Talk about a ball field, I'm learning about bridges. There are many things that I wanted to accomplish that I haven't been able to. One of the things that I did have on my list that I am proud of is that we have a public comment portion in the beginning of the town council meetings. I think it's important. We are a small town. We do not have a local daily, weekly. We have a monthly newspaper that comes out. I think it's important to have that portion of the council meeting where people can voice their concerns. Let us know about something that we might not know about. When I first asked for this to be on the council agenda, I was not council president. I was told that people will get out of control. People will say things and things will be, it won't be civil. I disagree. I think people, if you set the bar high, and maybe it's the teacher in me, if you set the bar high, people will meet it. We set the bar high. We have a list of rules. We've never had to have anyone escorted out. I've never had to have anyone sit down and start speaking. I think that would be my, well, I would say that would be my best accomplishment so far in the past 2 years, is that people can come and speak and feel comfortable to speak. And that there are announcements, they are recorded, so people can see what is going on in town, and concerns are brought to us that we might not be aware of. Thank you.
Ms. Hawes?
You know, I sat here and I was thinking, why did I say that to that answer? Or why did I say that to that answer? Or I could have said it better, and I probably could have. But I speak from the heart when I say that I love this town and I love the people in it. And I do my utmost to be fair and to listen, not judge, and make my decisions based on what is presented to us. I would like the opportunity to continue to do that, work for the town, and work with other people that have the same goal, which is to make this town not better, just as great, and keep it great. Because it is a great town. I've lived here my whole life. I have no intention, as I said, of leaving. It's a beautiful town. I take pride in it, and I take pride in sitting here, serving you. I'm not making promises because I found that when I think I can proceed and we can go forward, we end up getting slapped back and we have to approach it from another way. It's not easy. It's not what I thought it was going to be when I was elected the first time. Quite frankly, I asked myself why I'm running again. But I think, as Denise has said, there are things that need to be done, and I'd like to help get them done. I really would like to see us move forward and make things happen in this town that need to happen. So I would ask you to consider voting for me. Thank you.
Okay. All the hardcores are still here. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Kathleen, for organizing this.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
I know that was a long meeting, but I think people who submitted questions will be really pleased that really every question that I received.
I have a headache.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys made my job easy.